Hi, so we're here with Salem Pearce from Carolina Jews for Justice, one of Jewish Liberation Fund's grantees from 2021. How are you, Rabbi Pearce?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jordan.
So we just wanted to ask a few questions to kind of like highlight some of the awesome work that JLF grantees are doing right now. And one of the things we thought was really interesting with you it's just interesting because these days North Carolina always seems to be on the front pages of political news, with all the election cycles, et cetera. But it's not somewhere people often think of as having a dynamic Jewish community. So what's it been like trying to build progressive Jewish communities in that atmosphere? And why is this the moment for organizing on that front?
Yeah, it's a great question. When we think about progressive Judaism, North Carolina, it does not necessarily spring to mind. And that's certainly something CJJ wants to change. We are the only organization, Jewish social justice organization in the South that's dedicated, just to doing social justice work. So we're really proud of that fact and, want to export this to other Southern states. Partly because, the Jewish community, but the progressive Jewish community tends to be very coastal centric. And there are a lot of Jews here who don't have the same opportunities, or not invited into the same spaces, and there's not structure here for Jews in North Carolina to get involved in progressive social movements as Jews and to build that community. It's really, it's a challenge in North Carolina. We are actually quite a big state, and Jews are spread out among several different urban areas, and the state itself, not just the Jewish community, but the state itself sees itself as sort of three different states, sort of the East, the middle, and then the West. And the Jewish community sort of follows those lines. So we're a statewide organization, and building some cohesion community is a challenge, certainly because of geography. And the Jewish communities in those places are small. I think it's less than 1% of the, maybe even less than 0.5% of the North Carolina population is Jewish. So the opportunities, the chances we have to come together, to learn with and from each other, to get clear on our commitments in the progressive world, and to solidify our identity as Jews is a challenge here. It's super important, though, that I think people support Southern Jewry, not least because a lot of institutional Judaism and mainline institutions have kind of a big Jews in the South. And so there's just not a lot of support. But as we've seen, let's say in Georgia, there's tremendous potential with investment for certainly like larger progressive movements, but all Jews being part of that, to make significant changes. And so that's one of the things that I'm really excited about as the executive director of Carolina Jews for Justice, is the potential here, which is enormous. And then I'll just add one more thing is I've lived in the Northeast for a lot of my life, and people there tend to not know very much about the South, and tend to be dismissive of, I think, the potential, but also the reality. And I would say Jews in the South know how to do intersectionality better than any other place. And I would say Southerners in general know how to do it, because we have smaller communities, and we are, if you're in the Jewish community, there's only so many people, and you have to work it out. So that's something I really like, and find to be very powerful. If you don't if you're not fitting well in a community in bigger places, you can say, okay, I'm gonna go here. But here in the South, we got to figure it out together, which is really a special opportunity as well as challenging.
Yeah, as someone from Central Illinois and Missouri, that definitely resonates at some real level.
Yeah.
Now, as part of what you said, you mentioned kind of the opportunities to come back together and like renew, your commitment to thinking about things that are important in justice work. And so actually, I want to bring up your grant from JLF to further your work on the Antisemitism Listening Project. Can you tell us more about what that is and, what it aspires to do?
Yeah. So CJJ is at its base, or at its core, a base building organization. We do leadership development, and we're trying to, for the reasons that I mentioned before, trying to help Jews, especially progressive Jews in North Carolina, cohere and build power through a shared identity as Jews. And the Antisemitism Listening Project is one part of that. We're all impacted by anti-Semitism, everyone, but I would say particularly Jews. But that is not the only oppression or systematic force that affects us. Our community is multiracial and includes LGBTQ folks, et cetera. But we're talking about anti-Semitism because we believe that to start, Jews are under-listened to about anti-Semitism. And we really want people to have an opportunity to share their stories and to listen to the stories of others. So the Listening Project is a series of circles, small groups of people who come together to share what their experiences of anti-Semitism and what they learned from it. And we try to end on a lift, on a higher note. And we also talk about why we're proud to be Jewish, in addition to some of the pain and harm we've experienced as Jews. And the idea is to help with our base building. People who participate in the circles then will get involved in our local chapter work. And also we want it to be a point of healing. I think our community has, in addition to being under-listened to about anti-Semitism, hasn't done a lot of healing work around the trauma of anti-Semitism. And we really think listening and being able to speak our truths is very important. And then we also want to get clear on our own stake in the work, and why it is important for us to be in solidarity, acknowledging intersecting identities, but we want to get clear on why we're in solidarity with other marginalized groups and why we care about anti-Semitism, because we also care about dismantling racism and homophobia and transphobia and Islamophobia, et cetera.
Well, so yeah, I think that's really powerful. But so could you elaborate a little bit more on, why is it so important in that way to contest the mainstream narrative about anti-Semitism today? What is that mainstream narrative, and how would you describe the more nuanced conversation around anti-Semitism that you feel like we should be able to have?
Yeah, I think what I hear a lot in the mainstream Jewish community is that it's sort of framed as hatred of Jews. And it's assumed to be sort of eternal and unstoppable, and something we're always going to fight against. And certainly CJJ and my work as a rabbi is to have a vision for a different world, a world where anti-Semitism doesn't exist. And so part of what we're doing is wanting to approach anti-Semitism that way. We understand it to be built by people, and so it can be dismantled by people. We think it's possible to have a world without anti-Semitism. And we don't believe the hatred frame is the most productive way to understand it. We understand anti-Semitism as part of a machinery of lots of different oppressions. that work to divide us from each other. And we think understanding anti-Semitism and knowing our stake in the work is necessarily gonna bring us together and help us be in solidarity with other marginalized groups.
So what's the next step in that case for the Anti-Semitism Listening Project? Obviously it seems like you have greater ambitions as far as bringing it to more people and other marginalized groups being able to be in solidarity with them. What's the next step for that project in terms of building a larger movement?
Yeah, so this is, I think there are next steps, and we also don't know what we're going to be hearing. And I think that's really part of the beauty of the project is we are going into this really wanting to make sure that we're listening and that we're giving people a chance to say what they want to say and to listen to each other. So part of this is non-directive. We're going to be collecting data, noticing stories, inviting participants in these circles to share and do their own documentation, whether it's going to be videos or art or writing. We do really want people as part of sort of our healing process to be able to talk about their experiences. And we also want to be looking at specifically how anti-Semitism lands differently for Jews, let's say in North Carolina, but I think the South in general, where we are, as Jews in the South, in much closer contact and in community with a sort of larger Christian hegemonic culture that, a lot of Jews can avoid in places if they choose to, not completely, but a lot of Jews can avoid it in larger urban settings where the majority of Jews live in this country. And so, our friends, our neighbors, everyone we meet is going to be part of that. You just can't. It's very, very hard to build community without having non-Jews be a part of that. And so I think there's something also very healing about that. The Jewish community showing up for other people and being able to see others show up for us. So that's going to be something that we look towards.
Awesome. So obviously we have the High Holy Days coming up. And especially, you're a rabbi, spiritual leader, community leader. I feel like I would be missing an opportunity if not to ask you, what's something from this movement that we could all hold on to going into the High Holy Days?
Yeah, I think, as we reflect, certainly in the time leading up to the holidays, we're right now in the month of Elul, which is usually a time of reflection and what we call tshuva, which literally means a return, it's sometimes translated as repentance. But I think it is so important for progressive movements to stop and take stock of where we are, the places we've missed the mark, and how we want to return to ourselves, so to speak, and return to our community and renew our commitment to justice. And what's really beautiful is that in the Jewish calendar, we have that built-in time where we're asked to, we're in some ways, depending on your perspective, required to take that time. And so when I think about sort of pursuing being a seeker of sort of peace and justice during the high holidays, I definitely think about like where are the sort of do a self-accounting, I would say, of my own personally, but then also organizationally, like where can we do better? How can we better show up? How can we take care of ourselves better? How can we take care of others in a way that is going to lead to a stronger movement? Here at CJJ, we really believe that how we do the work is as important, maybe more important than what work we do. And that's what's going to sustain us and help us build a thriving movement, is if we do take that time for reflection and self-care and commitment to renew ourselves and return to our highest ideals and aspirations.
So let's say someone around that area does want to take that time to renew themselves and return to all those aspirations. How can they get involved?
Yeah, if you're in North Carolina, we want you to be a part of CJJ, and we have several chapters all over the state. And so we would love for you to get involved in what your local chapter is doing. That's one of the wonderful things. We are a statewide organization, and our chapters have a lot of autonomy to pursue what's going on with them in their local communities and the campaigns that are going on there. And then, I have to put in a plug for the Antisemitism Listening Project. No matter where you are in North Carolina, we want to hear from you. So we are really looking we want to involve as many people as possible, but also people with all kinds of different Jewish identities. And I think, it's a great thing about American Judaism, but also I think Southern Jewry is that there are just so many different ways to be Jewish, and really proud of all the different ways that people come to their Judaism here in North Carolina.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time, Rabbi Pearce. This was awesome. And for all you people out here supporting JLF, we love you and appreciate you and hope you enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much, JLF. We are so excited to be partnering with you in this work.
All right, then.